Welcome everyone to a Saturday with Clear Mountain. We have three special guests worth mentioning today, I think. First we have Tenteja Dhammo. Good. Tenteja Dhammo and I grew up as monks at Mopjan together. He came after I had been ordained a few years, and this is the second time we've had him visit us, and it's great. He's just such a good monk and a great brother. We only get him for a few days, but we're very glad you came to visit us, Teja. Thank you so much. We also have Trenton's parents, Shannon and Matt. Can we embarrass you just a little, and if you raise your hand for us? So all of us know and love Trenton, and it's very nice to meet you both. Thank you for coming. And Angela is visiting from the East Coast, which is worth mentioning, in Colorado. So, Angela. Was Virginia? Oh, Virginia, welcome back. All right, Virginia's been going everywhere, really. Thailand. What's your itinerary been over the last 6 months? This is part of Virginia's pilgrimage, moving up to go be at Canmore for quite a long time with Ayahimsa. So if we can get just 3 big sadhus for all these wonderful guests here. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Bonnie, I believe you may have an announcement.
Today, after our social time, we're going to be packing up everything in Jeremy's car, who graciously has volunteered to take everything to Fauntleroy for the New Year's Eve. So don't bring things upstairs. Check with me and Christina before you move anything, just to make sure we have the right stuff going in the right place. And if anybody is going, please bring chocolate. Chocolate and what? Or 70 or less. No milk chocolate, but dark chocolate. But I think it's like around 60%. That's pretty good, or 70. So, not higher, right? Don't bring the really bitter stuff. No one's going to eat that. You like? Well, you bring it, right? And Johnny's saying no nuts, no almond bars or anything like that. But anyway, I hope you all can come, and would love to all see you there. It really is quite a cool night, so thanks.
Thank you. And Bonnie's just been instrumental, along with Christina, in terms of organizing this whole New Year's Eve event. Most of you know, but yes, this New Year's Eve, Tuesday evening, starting at about 7 p.m., although we encourage people to arrive earlier, at Fauntleroy Church, we'll be doing a night extravaganza, an all-night vigil, involving chanting, Dhamma talks, meditation, and probably a lot of nodding off, but only in proper measure. So please consider coming. You can tune in online, and the details are on the website. I think that's all.
Okay, we can chant together a bit. On page 43, this is the suffusion with the divine abidings, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And we'll do this in English. Now let us make the 4 boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a heart imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th. So above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with loving kindness. abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with gladness. Exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. So now we can have some time to cultivate the mind together. So do a brief guided meditation. Just settling in, feeling the sensations of the body. Just inviting the mind to put down any thoughts of the past, any thoughts of the future, and inviting the mind to find peace and contentment in this present moment. So feeling the feet on the floor, or the feelings of pressure against your seat. Feeling the spine comfortably upright, not too tense, not too loose, but alert and aware, and also at ease. Tuning into the sensations around the mouth and jaw, inviting any areas of tension to relax.
And similarly with the neck and shoulders. Feeling the area around the eyes, inviting the body to relax and be at ease. Because whatever happened before, whatever will happen, just right now, there's the opportunity to make the mind peaceful and happy. And it's a very precious opportunity. So we can take this chance to feel the whole body sitting, and just to invite a sense of loving kindness, whether you just do that verbally or with the image. Could be an image of white light or golden light. You could imagine a loving being like Buddha, Bodhisattva, someone that you hold in high regard, or it can just be the loving kindness from the universe itself, coming down from the sky, coming up from the ground, coming in from all directions. And just simply repeating the phrase internally, may I be well, may I be happy. You can just invite that loving kindness into every cell of the body. Again, could be a white light or golden light, kind of soaking into the body from all directions. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be at ease. And see if you can feel that feeling of warmth or relaxation, brightness, soaking into the body and the mind from all directions. And again, you can imagine there's a being who sends you loving kindness unconditionally. It can come from the universe or any concept, anything that you find suitable. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be at ease. And you might notice the body relax a bit more, or the breath becomes deeper or smoother, or the mind itself becomes more relaxed and at ease. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be at ease. Just letting that sense of warm, well-wishing, loving-kindness to permeate throughout the body, throughout the mind. You might notice the mind become more still, more quiet, more radiant. And as the mind gets more still, you might stop repeating the phrase, or you might stop listening to the instruction, and that's fine. Just let the mind rest in that quality of stillness and peacefulness. And if you notice the mind getting lost in the thoughts or distracted, just bringing the mind back to, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be at ease, and feeling that loving kindness in the body. And also tuning into a sense of the reason you bring the mind back, the reason you're doing this in the first place is because you wish yourself well, wish yourself to be happy and at ease. And you have the wisdom to understand that to truly be well, happy, and at ease means to bring the mind to peace, to train the mind. So just inviting the mind into the space of loving kindness. And you can think you don't have to generate any loving kindness, but you can conceive of it, that the loving kindness is there. You just invite the mind into it. Into a place of, again, could be visual, white light, gold light, a place of warmth, happiness, well-wishing. Just inviting the mind into that space. And just really letting the mind rest in that quality of wishing well to yourself. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be at ease. And again, if the mind wants to be still and to cease any phrases or imagery, just let the mind be still. And if you find the mind getting distracted, you can just come back to your visualization of light permeating all the cells of the body. And also the phrase is, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be at ease. Whatever sounds might contact the ear, bodily sensations arising, thoughts arising and ceasing, whatever might come into the field of your awareness, just see if you can let it arise, stay for a little while, and cease within that space of loving kindness. Having established loving kindness well in the mind, you can imagine it's like a very spacious, the mind becomes very spacious. So whatever experience, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, in whatever of the sense doors, a thought, sound, body sensation, and so on, you can just let it arise and cease of its own accord. No need to hold on to the pleasant things. No need to push away the unpleasant things. You can just know the neutral. Just see them come and go. Just like, you could say it's like throwing paint in the air. If there's nowhere for it to land, then it has no effect. It doesn't color anything. Just making the mind spacious with loving kindness. And whatever arises in the six senses, they can just come and go, come and go. And if you feel that space of loving kindness getting a bit less bright or less clear, you can recharge with the phrase or visualization. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be at ease. And if you watch the sounds or body sensations or whatever sense door is prominent, you see whatever arises also ceases. There's no experience that's lasting. And you see that it comes and goes of its own accord. If you try to force something to stay, or force something to go away, you see that it doesn't obey your commands. And so it's not in your control. And when you cultivate this perception that it doesn't last, it's not in my control, there's no real lasting essence there to satisfy you, you can test it out for yourself and see if that deepens the sense of peace in the mind. It can be a tranquility of disenchantment. For instance, with the body sensations, you might start to get a sense of, well, it's not my body that feels pleasant or unpleasant or neutral, but it's these experiences or sensations that are coming and going, and they're not under your command. You're not making them come and go, but they're just doing it on their own. And with that, the mind can let go, even if it's just a little bit. And there's a sense of peace with that. You can let your mind rest in that peace and go deeper into that peace.
จโลกาทิปติสัมปติกัดอัญชลียันทิวารังยาจถาสันติทาสันตาปาราชังคชาติกาเทเสตุธัมมังอนุกัมปิมังปะชัง
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ So I'd like to ask permission from Ajahn Koilo, Ajahn Nisapo, everyone gathered to listen, to share some thoughts on Dhamma that my intention is that it may be beneficial to you. If it's not beneficial, you can just put it down. No need to carry it around. I'm just curious, compared to before we did the chanting and meditation, compared to now, who feels more peaceful? Okay, very nice. Not everybody. But I think what I'd like to point out there is that, just such a short time, relatively, 25, 30 minutes, and just applying the mind in a certain way, it can have a noticeable effect, or palpable effect. So we see that, this training, this practice that we do, you can see results in the short term as well as the long term. But I always like to reflect on causality. You see that it's causal. You came here, you renounced or abandoned whatever other activities you might have been doing at this time in order to come here, train the mind, listen to Dhamma. And just through these relatively simple causes, simple but quite difficult for most people to do, it gave rise to a result. And even if you didn't feel peaceful, in my experience, just applying the mind, having the intention to train the mind, it does yield results in the long term, even if they're not experienced or not pleasant in the short term. And you also see that everyone has their own karma, and that it's not in our control. Not in our control. So whether you feel peaceful or not, it's not because of what I said. It's not because of the building, or it's because of all these things. There are countless causes and conditions. But what's up to us is simply to make effort in the present to the best of our ability, effort to cultivate the wholesome, abandon the unwholesome. And whatever else there is, it's just not up to us. Like sometimes the body hurts and we don't want it to hurt, but our body doesn't seem to be following our commands. It just hurts anyway, even though we tell it not to. And it is true that we can do some things. We can change the posture, or maybe see a doctor, get some medicine, whatever is appropriate. But at the end, the body gets sick, it ages, and it dies. And it does all of that on its own. So we have this illusion of control. We tell our arm to lift and lower, and it seems to do what we want it to do. But it doesn't always, or it's quite limited as well. In terms of if anyone's tried to tell their body not to age, not to die, I've yet to hear of a success story of maybe we can trick ourselves, or might feel like it's working for a very short time, but these are reflections that can help the mind feel less entangled. Generally speaking, our mind gets tangled up in these things, tangled up in the body, tangled up with our friends and family, tangled up with our possessions. So then if something happens to those things that we're tangled up with, we feel it. It affects us. Like if we really love our car, smartphone, our possessions, and they get lost, then it has this effect on the mind because our mind got tangled up in them. And we can think, well, why is the mind getting tangled up? Like, why is it doing that? We could say it's a habit. And one way I like to think about it, just for my personal reflection, is the mind's trying to find happiness. It's trying to find peace. Thinking if it can sort of get tangled up in just the right things in just the right way, we can finally be happy in the world, or be at ease. Like if we get attached or tangled up with only the right people that we love, or only the right possessions that are really useful to us, then that'll give us satisfaction. I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like I've tried that a fair bit, and it just really didn't seem to work out in the end. Of course, certain things are useful, and especially when it comes to human relationships, spiritual friendship is the whole of the holy life, or the whole of our, without spiritual friendship we wouldn't be here, starting with the Buddha on down to the present day. But particularly with the body, thinking that if we get tangled up with it, if we dress it up the right way, feed it the right way, take it out for walks, give it some water, that it can be a satisfactory source of happiness, then, well, again, I don't know about you, but it's never worked. It can give some fleeting pleasure, of course, here and there, but I've certainly never felt like it gave me a permanent source of satisfactory well-being. Quite the opposite, in fact. It's always, aching, getting tired, needing food or water, needing to use the bathroom. I think we all know what it's like to live with a human body. So I'd say instead of being a source of satisfaction and happiness, it would be quite the opposite. Or a source of true beauty, which we're all, I think, conditioned to see human bodies, whether our own or others, as attractive. But when we look more deeply, sometimes we can even feel shocked. Like if we just turn the body inside out, I think most of us would probably feel quite shocked. But it's actually the same thing, it just looks a little different. And so think in they call these distortions of perception, thinking of the body as a beautiful source of satisfaction or permanent, and so on. But we see that it's a quite a deep habit. Like Ajahn telling a story of giving blood, donating blood. And I think we've all probably had some blood taken out at some point, whether donation or for a medical test. But I think a lot of people, or speak for myself, if you see the blood in the tube, sitting on the counter, you don't feel particularly like it belongs to you or that it's yours. You just feel like, oh, it's some red liquid over there that maybe used to be mine, but you don't really feel like it's mine. But then when you come to look at your body and you try to apply that same perception of, oh, like none of the blood running under the skin is mine, the mind just doesn't seem to really deeply accept that. And the way Ajahn teaches that is that one needs samadhi, one needs the mind that's truly still, peaceful, and quiet to actually understand that beyond the conceptual level, but to understand it to the level where the mind actually experiences some freedom, all the way to complete freedom from the afflictions of ignorance, craving, aversion, attachment. And so, like we were doing earlier, I'm just sharing this because it's something that I personally find very beneficial, something I really like to do. So I just like to share it with you all, and if you also like it, then that's great. If you don't like it, then never mind. But I find the Brahma Viharas to be particularly conducive to that quiet, peaceful mind. And we don't stop there, but we use that quiet, peaceful mind to look into the nature of experience, the nature of reality, to understand it clearly, so that we stop creating suffering for ourselves. So we can do that with loving kindness, wishing oneself well and happy, wishing all beings in all directions well and happy, and compassion. May I be free from suffering. May all beings be free from suffering. And I often like to highlight mudita, because in my life thus far, I don't hear a lot of talk on mudita. So I remember some time ago, maybe, I guess the years really go by, but I don't know, maybe 18 years ago or something, I just had this thought arise in the mind of, I don't hear much talk on mudita. I'm really going to try to really go deeply into mudita in this lifetime to really see what it's like. Because I just wanted to know, like, is it a really, would it really be a beneficial object, or maybe I just wanted to know what that quality really was like directly. And certainly still have a lot of more practice to go with it, but I find it's a nice tool in the meditator tool belt that I use often. And part of the reason I use it often is because it really is so joyful and uplifting. And that's a quality that I personally find beneficial to cultivate. I find it can be quite easy for the mind to get a bit too serious or a bit too dark, just not particularly bright, at least historically in my life. And so making a point to cultivate mudita I found was really a great antidote, very beneficial. And so just to give a few examples to encourage you, if any of you would like to incorporate some more mudita into your life. But just something basic, like right now, I have a human life, have an opportunity to practice the Dhamma, have an interest in Dhamma. And I'd say that's something all of us share. Otherwise, well, I don't know why you'd be here, but I think all of you probably have some Dhamma interest. But you can really just say, like, oh, I really rejoice with my good fortune that I have this great opportunity to train the mind, which is so rare to come by. I think it's not hard to look around the world, and it doesn't seem particularly common to have this interest, this human body, this opportunity to train the mind. And so one of my favorite phrases is, oh, may my good fortune continue and increase, or may my good fortune continue and increase evermore. And I think with a lot of meditation objects, if you're not used to them, it might feel quite dry, or you just feel like there's no effect at the beginning. Like I used to feel that way with certain of the recollections. Like last on the Wednesday we talked about Deva Nusati, but the other Nusatis, like recollecting one's giving, one's virtue, I would find quite dry in the beginning. But after just doing a little bit every day for many years, I'd find it could really get some great momentum, become quite easy actually, some of these reflections, like a very easy way to make the mind happy and bright and peaceful, more quiet. But also like sessions like this, if you're on Zoom or in person, you don't have to physically look around, but you have a sense that there's other people in the room. You think, oh wow, I'm so happy all these people have this interest in the Dhamma, are willing to renounce various entertainments and other pleasures to come train the mind. And just feeling that sense of, oh, everyone in this room, like may your good fortune increase and continue. And at least for me, like living at a monastery, I tend to do that probably many times a day. And it's quite easy because everyone there is trying to train the mind. But even if it's not in a monastery, you can rejoice with the fact that people have a human life, or that not that everyone has the four requisites, but if you're with someone who does have the four requisites, you can rejoice with the fact that people have enough food or shelter or clothing, medicine. And if they don't, you can still rejoice that they have a human life opportunity. One kind of, I don't know if it's amusing to you, but it always makes me chuckle. But this is a true story of, I was born and raised in America. I've lived in Thailand the past 8 years. And in Thailand, people will ask me about American politics and how kind of divisive they perceive it to be from their standpoint. I don't know how you all perceive it, but I can say that at least some people perceived it as divisive. So, and of course, as a sort of normal human, I had my own views and opinions at certain points in my life, and had some kind of negative thoughts or feelings about certain politicians. I'll just bring that up as an example. But I knew that this was not conducive to my well-being, these thoughts and sort of negative thoughts, negative feelings. Like I really, again, like that metta practice, I said, I wish myself well, I wish myself to be happy. And here I am with these sort of negative thoughts and feelings that are afflictive and don't seem to be beneficial to myself or others. And so I kind of just contemplated, well, how can I address this? Like how would right effort manifest? What does the right effort look like for me given my situation of wanting well-being but being afflicted by I guess, different forms of aversion, you could say. And the strategy I employed was one that I guess you could say I've never heard of before, not that no one uses it, but I actually made a real point to cultivate mudita towards these people that I felt negatively towards. And every time I would think of this politician, or multiple, but starting with one, every time I would think of them or hear about them on the news, or read about in the newspaper, etc. Not that I encourage you to do those things, by the way, but I know most people do. As a side note, I gave up those activities and it felt a lot better. But I still hear about it through talking to other people. So anyway, whenever I would hear about or perceive this person in my mind, and knowing that they were a famous politician, I felt very confident that they had enough money to at least get enough food and shelter. Because, they were probably a millionaire or known. I think a lot of big politicians have enough money to buy food, as far as I understand. So anyway, if anyone doubts that, that's okay, but I was confident that they could get food and shelter. Because I needed something basic that I could feel confident about. And I didn't want to go with just the human birth. I wanted something that my heart could get on board with a little more. Because I knew the pain of being hungry, and I knew the pain of not getting enough food. I've been very fortunate in my life, but I had an illness where I was chronically hungry. So it was very uncomfortable, it was very painful. So anyway, I would just think, I'm really happy that this person has enough food. I'm really happy they have enough food. And I would just think that every time I would hear them, or see them in the news, whatever. And it only took, honestly, I think a few months. Just hearing their name or seeing them, I would instantly feel joy. So happy for them that they don't have to be hungry and that they can have shelter. And to this day, that individual, I think there was maybe more than one, but anyway, I think there was one that stood out, maybe a few others. But I really just felt so happy for them. And that happiness became so strong that it actually, sort of like a light dispersing shadow, it just dispersed all other perceptions and thoughts about that individual. Like any kind of I have a different view, I have a different opinion, I don't like what they did, I don't like what they said, etc. All that just fell away, and the mind, I'm not saying it became completely absorbed in samadhi, but became, peaceful enough that these other thoughts and perceptions fell away, and it was just this brightness of, I'm just really so happy that they don't have the pain of hunger, that they have enough food. And just that, the mind would just stay with that. And if the mind would fall away, just like any meditation practice, I'd bring the mind back to, may their good fortune continue and increase. Because even if I didn't like them, there was a real genuine sense of I would never wish them to go hungry. I would never wish them to have the suffering of not getting enough food, whether in this life or any future life. There's a genuine sense of I really wish that their good fortune would continue and increase. I just find and that's, as some of you may know, a bit of an unusual way to go about Brahmavihara practice, sort of go straight to the difficult person. But I'm sharing it partly because it's kind of a bit amusing or easy to remember. But it was also, I think, related to the fact that, I've been very dedicated to Brahmavihara practice for a long time before I went to that difficult person. So there's some, not saying I was great at it, but there's some foundation of, 10 or 20 years of Brahmavihara practice. But the thing is, do it with everybody. Neutral people I like, people I don't like. Because I can always, and I'm not saying just for me, but you can always find something that's a good fortune that you can wish, may your good fortune continue and increase. And I think I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. You can try it, see how it goes. But I did find it particularly effective with difficult people, because I found for myself, because I've heard this before, I can't remember who or where it was from, but this kind of wishing of like, if someone you really don't like, you could think, oh, may your stupidity be alleviated, or like, may your awful behavior, improve. And you're like, yeah, I'm doing compassion. Which, it's not that you can feel genuine compassion with those phrases, but I found for myself, just the way my mind works, it was just too easy for my mind to fall into these kind of slight negative states, or even just like this kind of overly like suffering along with the person. If someone's really suffering, I say, oh, may you be free of the suffering. Or someone I don't like, it's like, may you be free of your, neurotic aversion habits, whatever it is. But I find it would easily become not real compassion. Because having, knowing that genuine compassion, like the actual divine abiding of compassion, is truly blissful, truly bright, radiant, and happy. There's not even a little bit of, sort of like, oh, I feel so bad for this person, or I really wish they'd stop being so terrible. There's none of that. Compassion is genuinely a bright state. But I found that it was, for my mind, it was easy to slip into some negativity. But I found mudita, because it's so far from that, was quite a good antidote for me personally, because it's just so bright, so joyful, so much focusing on the good fortune of others and oneself, that it really helped to see through the power of contrast just how low that state of aversion and judgment was. It's going straight from, oh, I don't like this person, I don't approve of them, whatever, going straight to, oh, may their good fortune continue and increase. I'm so glad that they have enough food, like may they always have enough food. Those mindsets are just so different. It just became so clear just how much affliction, how much suffering came with that more judgmental or aversive mind state. But again, just sharing some reflections, and I encourage you to try it out, see if it works for you. And if you don't want to try it out, I will try to maintain equanimity. And but I really do genuinely rejoice with your good fortune that you have the wisdom to even have the inclination to train your mind. I do think it's something rare and beautiful. So I rejoice with you, and may you rejoice with yourselves and with each other. May your good fortune of having Dhamma interest, Dhamma practice, may that continue and increase evermore, whether in this life or the next. May you keep practicing until the mind is freed from all afflictions. So may it be so.
หันธรรมยังธรรมคถาสาธุการังธรามเสสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโมทามิ
Thank you very much, Venerable. So we can shift over into a more interactive period. This is time for Q&A. We do have people on Zoom. The TV isn't working this week, but there are people on Zoom. So if you're on Zoom, you can ask questions and raise your cute little cartoon hand if you want on Zoom. And if you're here, you can raise your normal hands as well. And we actually have a mic runner. I think Miles will come and bring you the mic.
Thank you for your talk, Venerable. My question is maybe, let's see if I can formulate it. So I find that the meditation was really beautiful for me, and I find that my mind really quite easily will settle into a sort of spacious and kind of peaceful, radiant state. But the body, well, even when the body softens, there's sort of a hypervigilance in the nervous system. So, you hear about people who, when they're in deep states of samadhi, don't notice things around them or aren't bothered by things. And for me, there's like if there's a sound, or like my mind can feel so radiant, and then there's a sound, and there's a just rush of adrenaline. And as I was sort of investigating, it's almost like they didn't ask me, but they, there's like an unspoken agreement. Like the nervous system goes, okay, I'll let you do your thing, mind. Like, go for it. Be radiant and whatever. I've got this. And it will not, and it's almost like there's a, they'll rest sometimes close together if they've scanned the environment and we're pretty sure we're safe. They'll rest kind of close together, but there's not going to be a full integration. The nervous system is like, no, I'm gonna stay vigilant. And maybe that's just the way I'm wired, and that's how it's gonna be this time. I don't know, but I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, Satu, for a great question. Well, it's funny, just yesterday, the three of us were talking about hypervigilant nervous system, because that's something I sort of enjoy learning about or studying, hypersensitive or hypervigilant nervous system and how to train it out of that, because that's something I've dealt with in my life as well. So, yeah, I do find that my understanding of what you describe, I think firstly to appreciate that the mind is getting bright, because that's not something to be taken for granted, or, that's something I think that's quite, wonderful and hard to come by. So I think to sort of rejoice and appreciate that. And, but yeah, I can also sort of relate to or appreciate the experience that, the nervous system seems to be sort of on a different page, or it's sort of maybe wired to be particularly vigilant or reacting with a particular strength to certain stimuli. But I find that from what I understand and what I've learned through reading and so on, but also through my experience, that it can be trained differently. Although it can take time, it's maybe not easy, but like one example is that like my nervous system historically quite hypervigilant as well, so I'd have a similar reaction, except interestingly to construction noise. And the reason for that I could trace back to my first trip to Thailand. So of course I've spent a lot of time in Thai monasteries at this point, or monasteries in Thailand. And for whatever reason, they seem to usually have a lot of big construction projects going on. And my sort of the reason I was there was to meditate. So you put those two together, like I'm trying to do my quiet meditation all day and into the night, and the construction, they're doing their construction all day. But it was interesting because those two things became sort of like, I don't know what you'd call it, like neurologically entangled or entangled in the nervous system. So every time I would hear the jackhammer or even the construction workers yelling to each other, that one's a little harder actually, but like the sound of the cement being broken up and crashing to the ground, I'd be like, oh right, this is the time to make my mind peaceful. And like those two things just became so close together that now at Wat Mapchan, where there is actually currently some big construction projects near my dwelling, it doesn't even really register, because it's like almost this automatic, like pre-verbal sense of as soon as I hear it, it's my trigger to feel as relaxed as possible, and it's like this reminder of like, oh right, every time there's a construction sound, it means like it's time to be with the breath or time to be with the body. But for me, it's this really interesting example, because that's been years of basically training the mind in the opposite way of what sort of other stimuli are like to me. Because other stimuli actually can trigger a strong response, like you're describing, like a rush of adrenaline and so on. So it's very interesting to me to observe the difference between non-construction sound stimuli and construction sound stimuli. Because construction sound, it's really like I don't even have to think about it. It just automatically makes me feel relaxed most of the time. But then other things, will be the opposite. Like, I guess, I don't know, like a phone ringing maybe. I can have maybe some sense of like, oh, that means it has a meaning to my system that you're supposed to, like someone's trying to reach you. Or, that's just a small example. But I think, I don't want to mention anything specific, but yeah, sort of retraining the nervous system out of that hypervigilant response. I mean, there's just tons of material on, YouTube or Google, but I think what's maybe relevant more in this context is just sharing that personal experience of seeing like, oh, it really does work. And maybe, it takes time and some effort because, you've sort of been training the system in the opposite way. Like, I think the phone's a good example. Like sometimes, maybe it's an important call and it's actually, you feel like you should pick it up straight away. So, the sound of the phone might actually activate your system quite a bit. And that's maybe thousands or millions of times over 10 or 20 years or however long cell phones have existed, or normal phones. But yeah, it's this sense of like, oh, I'm supposed to do something now. So to kind of train away from that, there's a lot of different techniques I could go on and on about, but that's probably, I don't know, does that feel enough to run with?
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, please, Sid.
Oh, hi.
Oh, we'll come back, Sid.
Oh,
Yeah, please.
hi, I'm Sarah. Thank you for the beautiful talk. I've been working with metta this year and finding some tangles in there of, do I really wish this thing for someone? I can get really lost in the brain, lost in the thought patterns, and really hooked, and then I can feel like bad about that. So I just really love that simplicity of, I'm so glad this person has food to eat. So I'm going to try to practice with that. And I'm new to the community, new to this lineage. I was just wondering if you could define that term, mudita, I think was the term for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, maybe I forgot to say it in English, so thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, probably if I were to pick a real, just single translation, probably sympathetic joy. What does it say in here? Gladness. But sympathetic joy, a bit more syllables than gladness, but I find that sense, there's sympathy in the sense of, it's related to sympathizing, empathizing, whether it's, empathizing with yourself or with another. And then there's joy, that sense of like, I really am so glad that, you have food and clothing and shelter. So yeah, that's what I would go with, sympathetic joy. But if you really dive deeper into it, I would say with all the Brahmaviharas, they really surpass probably any words that we have for mind states, in the sense of like the real deep peace, deep quietude, and the brightness, the radiance that come with if your mind really settles, sort of like really delighting and rejoicing and settling into those profoundly wholesome mind states. It becomes such a brightness, such a happiness that it probably would be beyond any English word that I know. So at that point, I think joy, the perception, or the word joy would probably be less than the experience. But I think, may it reach that point for all of you, and beyond.
So the Brahmaviharas, yes, it's metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, sympathetic joy, gladness, rejoicing, and upekkha, equanimity or equipoise. And kind of this idea that that general sense of goodwill of metta when encountering suffering responds with karuna, compassion. When encountering another's happiness, rejoices in mudita. And often that's the hardest part for people. And Bhante Analayo has a really good analogy. He says that metta is like the sun at midday. It kind of shines evenly on everything. Karuna, compassion, is the sun at dusk, like bordering on darkness, but kind of sweet and poignant for it. Mudita is the sun at dawn, kind of the bird song rising. And upekkha is like the moon, equanimity. It has a kind of cool light that's not its own, but slightly, with a slight step back. And I find those images are really sweet. And just to say the near enemies of each of the 4 Brahma Viharas, the near enemy of metta is lust, affection, like biased affection, attraction. The near enemy of compassion is piti, like pity. I pity you. I pity the fool. Yeah, with the Y. The near enemy of sympathetic joy is kind of excitement, and the near enemy of upekkha, equanimity, is indifference. So it's useful kind of framing.
Actually, you reminded me of something, if that's okay. Yeah, just to sort of continue with that theme, another one of my favorite ways of understanding sympathetic joy, compassion, metta. I mean, if anyone's a parent, they could probably relate more directly, but you can also just imagine, or having seen parents, but usually if a child is suffering, the parent will instantly feel the sense of like, oh, like, may you not suffer. And if the child has some success, like, they graduate, they get a good job, or something good happens to them, the parent just instantly is just very happy for them. And I think these are examples, because metta is the foundation, like generally the parent wishes well for their child. With that foundation, then compassion and sympathetic joy arise naturally. Like, it's like the mind of metta that perceives suffering, compassion arises. The mind of metta perceives good fortune, sympathetic joy arises. But like we were talking about earlier before this meeting, for parents to have true equanimity with regard to their children, that's kind of can be quite difficult. So, something we all can work on, I think. But,
Sid had a question over here. Okay.
Just while Mike's coming over to Sid, just in response, one more thing to you, Kim, is I think Tenteja Dhammo addressed this a bit in regards to trauma in the past and kind of that hyper nervous system which some people have after that. And just the idea that, over here, Miles, just the idea that you don't need to necessarily go straight into the body if it's feeling quite intense. That I think your advice was actually that for a long time you rested in the Brahma Viharas apart from the body slightly and waited until the body actually calmed down on its own. And I'm just reminded of those kind of videos of people befriending traumatized animals, and you really just have to put out a little bit of food for them little by little and let them over a long time. It can take a long time until they come to you. And I think there is something about if the body's not ready, just trusting that with the mind's radiant, if you do just place it near the body long enough, the body does come into concord more and more, maybe. Sid.
Ajahn,
Actually, Teja Dhamma, one more time, sorry.
I just feel like I have so much experience with that phenomena. I'm very glad Ajahn Nisapho added that, because that was a big part of it. Was if there's a lot of trauma in the body, sometimes it's just maybe just overwhelming too much, and so trying to give the mind a place that actually does feel safe, which for a time for me, more towards the beginning, my practice was more like with the metta around the body as opposed to inside the body itself. But I would also say that, like the mind can be taught that right now is safe, right now is okay. And again, there's tons of techniques for that. So sort of different individuals will resonate with different techniques, but I think just to understand that that's possible, that the nervous system, even on the subconscious level, can learn that, like, it's okay, like it's safe. And to know that's possible, I think that's the first step, and then you kind of find whatever techniques resonate with you.
Or construction.
Just live near construction.
Good to go? All right. Ajahn, thank you for the wonderful talk. Today, before coming here, we were talking a little bit in the Macarena Bakery, and then you mentioned about Buddha's grand sacrifice of giving away his children and to move forward with the path. So I was wondering, what would you recommend for regular people like me can prepare myself to, maybe like not that high, but to keep going on the path, to prepare myself for big sacrifices if it comes. If it makes sense. Thank you.
Sadhu. Yeah, wow. That's a really good question. I almost feel like that's just a question you can just sort of just live with every day, and the answer will constantly arise and constantly be changing in every moment. Like, how do you really prepare to like lose everything you love? I think is what it, at least, I don't know, I'm just saying that's how my mind phrases it. 'Cause like, whoa, like, how am I supposed to answer that, But I feel like it's important, though, because that's the reality that we either desperately run away from, desperately try to protect ourselves from, desperately try to ignore that it's not what we know is coming. 'Cause even if we have like a kind of very nice conception of what happens after the body passes away, there's still that sense of, this body dies, all bodies die, everyone his body dies, like even, I'm totally happy with, meeting up in heaven with my friends, but then also, heavenly bodies die, heaven realms are impermanent. So it's like, how do you prepare for that? Because it is coming one way or another. Whether you die first or everyone else dies first, one way or another, there is separation. I mean, one way Ajahn Anan says it is, with every coming together, there is separation. Just to let that sink in. It's like, wow, okay. Every single time there's coming together, eventually there's separation. And I find it's been the most difficult thing in my life. It's like trying to come to terms with that reality, but I also say the most beneficial reflection or experience as well, most beneficial experience in my life has been the experience of loss of various kinds, or in the contemplation of that, I would say been the most beneficial. Because even if someone doesn't die, you can lose your perception of them in the sense of they change in a way you don't like, or you feel like they've become someone that's different than before, become someone that you no longer feel connected with, or they're still alive, but you're no longer in contact, there's separation. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that fourth reflection of the 5 reflections, I think we all know, I will be separated from all that I love, all that's beloved and pleasing to me will become otherwise, will become separated. And you can get really refined about it. Like even, if I'm feeling good energy, having a good day, and then I get tired in the evening, like you lost your pleasant, energized self, and now you're with a tired, exhausted, sore self. And that is being separated from the loved. Like you probably, I enjoy feeling good. I don't enjoy feeling bad. So there's some separation from the love there. Just so many little ways. And I think just to really acknowledge that's that's sort of our predicament. And that's sort of the question the Buddha, I mean, there's many ways to frame the Buddha's sort of, the legend or the story of him going forth, but, seeing the sick person, the dead person, the aged person, the samana. But one way I like to reflect on that story is, just seeing, like everyone I know is gonna get sick and old and die. And, what should I do about that? I just really love that part of the Buddhist story where instead of doing what basically everyone else does, or most people do, which is just like, we know everyone ages, sickens, and dies, but, or maybe not us because we're all talking on Dhamma, but generally the attitude is like, all right, well, let me just try to run away from pain and go after pleasure, and things will work out maybe, or not, I don't know. But you just try to ignore that reality. But I love how the Buddha just faced it, and I can just imagine, the Buddha having this incredible loving kindness for all beings, and just this unimaginable, so much loving kindness for his wife, his son, his parents, family, friends, his kingdom, and just thinking like all these people I love will sicken, age, and die. What can I do for them? And that was, that's what led him on his quest. And then he came back with, you could call it the deathless is one word for it. But he said, well, I found the solution to this, and here it is. And I just love that, where it's, well, how do you solve separation? How do you solve loss? Well, you solve it at the cause. Like if you want to go beyond death, you stop birth. If you want to go beyond separation, you go above and beyond coming together. I mean, so it's a very profound Dhamma. It's not for the faint of heart, but it is, I think, the Buddha was quite clear about it. It wasn't like, there's not like any kind of side goal that's almost as good. It's like, it's really, there's only one way to really stop it, and it's at the cause. So, but yeah, I think the short answer is dana, sila, bhavana, generosity, virtue, meditation, just in terms of strengthening the mind against all the slings and arrows that inevitably come with conditioned existence. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, just the whole path is really the best protection, I would say.
Is there time for a question from online, from on Zoom?
Do we have time for that question?
Maybe unless you wanted to follow up on Tejadama's first.
Okay. Well, we will have to renounce our beloved Q&A period in just a moment, but the Buddha, there's a Pali term for the great renunciation. He had a palace, he had 3 palaces, he had chariots, he had a wife who was a princess. I mean, who has one of those? He just has so much, and he's got so much he's giving away. But it's interesting to reframe this maha nekama, the great renunciation of just what's the greatest thing that we can give up right now is exactly what we need to give up right now. And there's always something. I mean, the definition of nibbana is the reality of non-clinging, of non-grasping, the reality of true renunciation. And all of us are holding on to something right now. And that's, I mean, what else you can give up your Tesla, but later if you want. Before that, just whatever's coming up right now. So, yeah.
There's also a story of Kafka, and I've told this before, but there was a girl who lost her doll in the park, and Kafka learned about it. He didn't take the doll, as we've learned, but the next few months or years, every few months, there'd be a letter on that little girl's doorstep from the doll traveling somewhere in the world that the guy kind of wrote, keeping her kind of in good, feeling good about where the doll was traveling. And on her, right when she was graduating high school, a new doll was on her doorstep, and years later she found a little note tucked into its hand, and it said, "You'll lose everything you love, but all the love will come back to you in new forms." And I think that's so key because, we've spoken to the fact that you lose, and we do lose, all these forms, these connections, and yet the love and the sankharas and the wholesome patterns we cultivate, the goodness they carry on, and we can amplify. And, for every kind of, when you let go of something on the Buddhist path, you're not left with an empty palm, it fills with sunlight, and you can really see that. It just takes enough restraint to keep it open until your eyes begin to adjust. So just to say, like the Buddha did say, this is a beautiful path in the middle, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. And I keep being conscious of Matt and Shannon, your first Buddhist Dharma talk, we got deep into birth, aging, and death. So we're usually more cheery, but I think there's plenty of cheer as well here. So just some thoughts.
Yeah, just to bring it back a little more practical, I won't say which one of us, but when we were eating our meal earlier, one of us shared a dessert with the other two monks. And I don't know how, my perception of this act was, oh, this is something I want, but I'm giving it away instead of keeping it for myself. And this, again, just sharing my perception of it was, I felt like, yeah, this is a very good example, because I think we can all relate to having some food we want, especially if we're hungry. And then if, maybe you just don't eat all of it, or maybe you give a little piece away, maybe you give the whole thing away. I think it depends on the strength of your mind. But this is, just a couple hours ago, to me was an example of, and it seemed like, or my hope for whichever one of us shared that, is that, the brightness of mind that came with giving up that pleasure, even though it might be painful at first, that there's a greater pleasure on the other side of that. And also I think, like Ajahn Nispo very importantly pointed out, yeah, when there's no birth and no separation, no coming together, no coming apart, yeah, all the great masters are very clear, as was the Buddha, that Nibbana is the highest happiness. So yeah, it's not all bad, and it's quite the opposite. It's actually very good. So also, I just want to say, yeah, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for your kind attention. Hope something here was beneficial, and if not, never mind. Can practice letting go. So, but it's been very nice to spend some time with all of you, and I do sincerely rejoice with all your practice. So, sadhu.
Okay, and just sharing that in concentric circles outwards, we've got something on our website called the Blessing Braid, or the sharing of blessings, chanting for people. And these are just people who aren't here, just in a larger community, maybe friends or family, or people who can't come in person, and just keeping them in our thoughts. We've done a lot of trying to do good in our lives, and this morning is a show of that. So just keeping these other people in mind who are maybe experiencing a bit more dukkha. Yeah, please, Cheryl.
Okay. First, Bill Magenheimer, Mary Webster's brother, died unexpectedly on the solstice. Please rejoice in his kind heart and share merit for a fortunate rebirth. Larry Griffey from John Stone, his son. Larry just had hip surgery and is now recovering. He lives in a nursing home. Dr. Grayson, going through health difficulties, spread metta. Kathy from ALF, just entered hospice. May she be free from dukkha and filled with loving kindness. This is his son. Kathy is his mother. Maisie, Bonnie and John's cat, who's ill, spread care. Tim Sewell, sister-in-law's brother who passed away on Christmas Eve.
And there's still enough love. If anybody here wants to bring any names into the space, please, Matt. Christine, who just had surgery. Thank you. Please. Asp is going to jail. Thank you. And Garth and Alfred. Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Yeah, please. John is in recovery from hip surgery. Thanks, Angela. and also just to bring some sukha, some joy into the room. We've got a couple birthdays this past week, including one birthday today. Kim, the president of Friends of Clear Mountain, our board. So glad you're here. Jyoti Kara, the bringer of light, it's a Pali name. And also Sid had a birthday on Christmas itself. So, yeah. Okay, so maybe should we do the chanting still? Okay. Well, let's sit with those names for just a moment, and then we can chant on page 33, the verses of sharing and aspiration. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana. In every kind of birth, may I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. Solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
Before we wrap up, we know it's going a little long. Can we just have anyone who's been here 3 times or less, feel free, if you want, to just raise your hand and say your name and how you heard about us, just so we can know you're here, embarrass you slightly, but mostly just give you love. And if you're a little shy, it's okay.
My name's Cooper, and Lauren.
Great. Welcome, Cooper. Yes, in the back. Clear Mountain through Cloud Mountain, welcome. We didn't realize our name was so similar to them until about 3 months into being here, and people started mixing up the emails, so welcome. Okay. Well, just to say, so Longpo Anan was the teacher who ordained me. Tanteja Dhammo ordained with him as well. And someone here was listening to Longpo Anand's Dhamma talks and was astounded by how well he spoke English and why his accent continually changed. And it's because Tanteja Dhammo is one of the 2 main translators for Longpo Anan. And so he's a really special monk. We are very blessed to have him with us. And we're hoping to get him back here soon. But we also have a very glittery gift bag for him. So Tanteja, welcome. Thank you for coming. Yeah, thank you. There we go. So if we can give 3 big sadhus for Teja. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And after this, we usually just finish by having a kind of social. There's a potluck. Please feel free to take some food. All the books in the back are free, as many of you know. We hope to see many of you at New Year's, and this is your chance to surround Tanteja Dhammo and ask him many questions. The final thing I'd like to just really draw out is Virginia's kind of aspiration to really give her life to the Dhamma in such a profound way is very rare and very precious. And it means a lot that you stop by to see us on your way up to Canmore. And we wish you all the best, and what you're doing is such a gift. So if we can just do 3 really hearty Clear Mountain sadhus for Virginia, that would be wonderful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Good luck, sister. Those who want to bow to the Buddha may, no pressure. And let's wave goodbye to the Zoom people who are over there. Actually, the TV's dead.